Howdy, folks. I'm Rebecca Jolly, the Jolly Alchemist, and today I'm sort of drowned inside of this huge mushroom hat. But I did promise I would show you, and just to prove that my 53rd gate does occasionally meet with a 42, so that I get a completion of cycles. I'll let you see the final. I don't know, I can't see what you're seeing, but hopefully you can see that I did finish the mushroom hat. So it's just in time for the fair that I'm going to be attending in Olympia. So if any of you watching this video are happening to be in Olympia or Washington and feeling like attending a lovely metaphysical wellness fair this weekend, you will see me and my ridiculously huge mushroom witchy hat. So I thought I would show that to you before we get started on this transit report here. So let me switch the camera, show you the details, and then we will talk about stories and experiences. Yeah? Okay, here we go. So here we have my journal, which you can check out. Oh shit. Wait a second, I need to start here. Sorry. There. There. And then there. And I figured out the writing that I was doing was superfluous because Linda Bonnell already did it. So let's start over on 34. And you can just get this page out of Linda Bonnell here. See if I can get it nice for you. There. And there. That saves me some writing, because I was really just going to write basically the same kind of stuff. There. And the interesting thing was that I was just switching in my journal to writing the planets for the exaltation and detriment, or the light and the shadow, or the this and the that, whatever you want to call it. No judgment. And then I remembered that there was something about that in the Linda Bonnell, so I decided to check it, and lo and behold, not only was there basically exactly what I was writing, but also the planets listed. So I was like, geez, I don't even have to track down the planets for it. Well, sheesh. And what they're giving here, I can tell because I was taking my stuff from the source of this, which is the Line Companion, is Ra saying his thing and then him quoting himself out of the White Book. So what I gather happened with that was when Ra originally received the voice, I heard him, I didn't hear him, but I read about him calling it recently in, I don't know, I've been reading so much, a science fiction experience. This, the voice descending upon him, of course, taking control of him and, making him write all the stuff and do his will, whatever. So the point of the story is that the rumor is that when he finished with that 8 days of dictation or whatever, he was so freaked out and scared by the whole experience that he took everything he had actually written in the moment when it was the freshest and newest and burned it. What an idiot, as Hermione says. So then he was forced to go back and try to reconstruct the things, and I think that's why we have multiple versions of Ra trying to explain it himself, because he, at different times he was trying to put it back together, and then phrasing it slightly differently. So we have a couple of different ways that he himself has phrased the things. And of course, we must always remember to evaluate our teachers. Yes? So our teachers, I'm swung back around to this one too. Ra as a teacher was only so good. You know, he was a great guy to receive the information and a very charismatic speaker, but I don't believe he ever actually fully deconditioned. And I think that that is why he died so soon. You know, he still had hubris, he still had a very generous ego, and he was still kind of a dick. And I think that's why, even though the voice had obviously told him something about how long he was going to last on the earth, that nothing like that is guaranteed, and I think we have proof of that in Ra. It doesn't disqualify his truths and his message, but it does mean that the information is not a 100% finished as it came through Ra from the voice, what he called the voice, which is really only global consciousness, right? It's the information that was ready to be coming to the whole entire planet, and he just happened to be the one dude on Earth at the time that was both perfectly suited for the job and in the right time, in the right place, ready, alone. That whole story he tells about the ruina and the cistern underneath that magnified the energy waves. And so I think it's awesome that he found his way out of whatever hole that put him in for a few years in order to be able to share this with the world. And really, truly, only a manifestor could have. You know, I've already told that story about Ra finding out there was somebody else who received a transmission that he heard of. There might have been others, but that it had made him crazy, and he spent the rest of his life in the funny farm. So, the point that I really want to get to in all of that is that while we're studying human design, we must always also at the same time study Ra and his design, because then we see that there were certain limits that were put on the knowledge by the clarity of the vessel itself. Yeah, and that's the truth for every single teacher that we have. And I hope that in what I'm doing in my transit reports and whatever kinds of videos that I'm making to share with the world, that I am making it clear that this is what I really, really believe. This is why I always start with explaining it from my own chart, so that you as students can see, where's my bias? What am I working with when I'm developing this information? Because everybody who touches it changes it a little bit. The question is, how do they change it? What is their motivation? And what is the size of their ego underneath? Because we have a whole raft of students. We have human design is a hugely fractured community at this point, where we have Linda Bonnell, who bought the system from Ra, writing her first book about it, which is awesome. I love that. But then she goes silent, and there's really nothing else from Linda Bonnell. There are a few like teaching materials and stuff like that, but I think we could have used a ton of stuff from Linda Bonnell that we never got. And that would have really, really helped, because she worked so closely with Ra and was truly, of all his students that I've ever seen, the one most clearly focused on transmitting exactly what he wanted to be transmitted. Because Ra himself wasn't really a writer. His books are lackluster at best, I think. And so he needed to be translated. He needed somebody who could be pedagogic, and Linda Bonnell spent a ton of time with him. She wrote a great beginner book. That's really, really awesome. I love it. But she's not around to teach, or she just like disappeared, retired, or something. And then we have Richard Rudd, problematic, ego. And we have Karen Curry, problematic, ego. And oh golly, I've heard of a few others. I don't remember their names, but those are the big ones, I think. And then we have Nicole and Andreas Ebhart, who also studied with Ra for years and years. And they broke off from the main school of human design because they wanted to start making it accessible to businesses and corporations. And the existing structure decided that that was completely unacceptable and excommunicated them. I'm so proud. My people. But in my search for human design knowledge, information, guides, teachers, I have been consciously evaluating, and I picked up really, really quickly. Who's the other one? God, what's his name? It's a weird one. I can't remember. His book was the first book that I ever read on human design. Uh, Shaitan Parkin, however you say that. And I got his book from the library, and it was horrible. It was really, really difficult to learn from that book because it was so badly organized that there was no way to put it together, no way to make sense of it. It was just a big glob of information that maybe now that I know human design, if I went back and read it, I'd be able to actually glean, some kind of gems from his interpretation, because I don't think that he is, I think he has the right spirit. I just don't think he's super talented at writing or explaining. So I've listened to some of his transit reports, and mostly they're boring. His partner is into astrology, which I think is cool. But I think that it's so important that we remember when we're in human design that it's not just about design, it's about our individuality. And if you can't see the individual inside of human design, then what the fuck is the point? If you're just being a human design professional like every other human design professional, then that also is stripping the individuality out of it, and I think really, really missing the point. And Ra himself spoke about people who could dive so deeply into design that they could spend their entire lives noodling in all the little details, and believe me, I see that as a possibility. And completely missed the point that it was really meant to transform their lives first. Yeah? Put on your own oxygen mask first. And that is what I have been doing, and that is what I'm still doing, because I am not done. I am still very much in the thick of my process. But that's exactly why I wanted to start making these videos, so that I could show my process, so that I could have proof, so that people who come to me for human design basics could see, okay, this is a work in progress, and this is something that, maybe I could get to as well. And that, I think, is really important, because as a fifth line being, I needed to be practical. The experimentation is fine, but I'm long past experimenting with whether or not this is actually a thing. I've had so many people that I gave readings for just laugh, cry, fall on the floor, drop their jaws. I've never had anyone who wasn't shocked or moved or excited by a reading, and not necessarily because of anything I did, but just because the information is there and you can really see in a very hands-on way that who we are is much less a matter of who we think we are and us making decisions that, oh, I'm in charge of my life, I'm knowing what I'm doing blah blah blah, then no, actually it's just mechanics, it's electronics, it's the energy in our body making us think things, making us see things, making us react to things, making us give our energetic imprint and conditioning on others, and that can pretty much be read in the chart to an amazing degree, really truly stunning amazing degree. So there is something to be found in studying this information. It's just a matter of how far, because it wouldn't really serve us to have the whole entire world dive into the depths of human design. We do need our experts. And then it's just a matter of evaluating our teacher. How expert are our experts? Number one, because this is a common problem Ra had. He said in the beginning, no sooner had he given somebody a reading than they turned around and started giving other people readings. And he's like, okay, wait a second. And I've also had that happen where somebody I taught, and I guess I didn't communicate well enough that he needed to do his own work first. And I just freely gave him all the inner workings of how human design is. And then the next time I saw him at a fair, he was giving human design readings for more than I was. And I just thought, okay, now I know why Ross started a human design school. And now I'm much more careful to differentiate with people whether they want to learn their design and the specifics of what can help them, and whether they want to learn the whole entire design system from top to bottom. And I treat those people differently because I also do not want to see this valuable and useful information taken and made into a scam. That's not cool. So I release myself from feeling guilty about having created a scammer in the world. It's not really my fault. I was innocent and generous in my offerings, but we all need to look at ourselves first before we start to use this, either to try to understand other people or specifically to make money off of it because we see, oh my God, it's awesome. You can know all about a human by looking at their chart. And I think the most important thing for me, it's like evaluating a dictionary. I learned really early on that you can evaluate the quality of the people making a dictionary, whichever dictionary you want. You can go to the library where they have tons of dictionaries and check it out for yourself by looking up the word fuck. And how they handle that word will tell you a lot about the dictionary, the people who made it, the time it was published in, and how open they're willing to be with all kinds of sensitive subjects. Very interesting. And this is kind of the same. I immediately, every time I see a teacher, I want to know, is this teacher willing to share their design with the world? There it is. Because if they're not willing to share their design, okay, what's up with them? Right? What bit of ego or twisted, broken something is going on that they're afraid to show the world their individuality? And as I've said many times before, I do not know that this is exactly my chart, but this is my chart as best as I understand it at the moment. And this one, yeah, I think this was actually right with the under the line stuff here. Not for sure, but I am starting to get a little bit more of a handle on that now. After so many years of reading the information, studying it without knowing where I was inside of it, that was really challenging. So anyway, first I want to I spent a little bit of time looking backwards and doing sort of a gate 13 kind of thing in looking at the previous week. And just for the record, I'm going to be calling a grouping, which is really maximum 6 days a week. It's just easier that way. So last week's kind of activations, and we're not quite done with last week's activation, so it's a little premature on my part, but it kind of has to be that way because I have to get the videos made and edited so that you folks can get the next week's information before the next week actually starts. I don't have to, but I really would like for you to be able to have that so that you can look ahead and plan your day, plan the energy if that's what you'd like, and see, oh, okay, I'm missing this activation in the integration circuit. Like, say, for example, me. I'm always going to be looking in the transit ahead to see if that 20 is there for me because I have 3 of the 4 of the integration circuit. So I really feel the lack of that 20. I've told the story about how I can sometimes put out my spidey senses in a room and I can just point to the 20th activation coming at me. Very interesting stories. But things like that. That's interesting to know. If you're a reflector or an observer, then it's interesting to know, okay, when is what channel going to get lit up? When am I going to be feeling the energy this way? What kind of issues are coming for me? And what kind of challenges? It was interesting when we had some, this 4323 energy that we just recently had when we passed my own cross. The other people that I know who have the 43rd activation or the 4323 said that they had kind of suffered in that time. And I did too. And my partner, who is not a cross of explanation, of course, he has this organizational opinions channel here, the logical in the logical circuitry for figuring out how to back up opinions with facts and figures. He's an upheaver, and in talking about this subject, he said to me, whenever it comes around to his birthday and the whole world is feeling the upheaver energy, he feels like it's a little bit too much for him as well. So I wonder if that might not contribute to people who have birthdays not exactly having the easiest time, energetically speaking, around the time of their birthdays because it's so much of their own energy coming at them that it can kind of be overwhelming. I don't know. It's a working theory, but it's an interesting one. So, in looking back, when the main activations for the sun and the earth were in 14 and 8, yeah, 14 being our money bags here, possessions in great measure, and 8 being our creative contributions coming out of the throat towards the G center. Of course, both of them are pointed towards the G center, and you have this mirroring effect in them, yeah? So it's kind of like you have all this like resources to give the world, and so these are like energetic resources, which can be translated into power, but it's, money, but it's, money, power, resources. And then on the other side, you have this resources of being able to speak. It's that voice that says, I can, here's what I can do. And it's a kind of a contribution in itself. And of course, then you also have it mirroring again to come up to the 4323 where I am. So it's creative contribution through speaking what's in the mind, if you want to mirror it that way. So this is that sort of a brain melt that I had recently about mirrors in the chart going not just left and right, but also up and down. Fascinating that. Yes, so on the subject of 14 and 8, Of course, on the other side of 8, we have 1 coming out of the G center. Both of these channels are pure individual circuitry, so you're going to get a lot of freaks here. And the 14, too, because it's attached to the sacral center, is a sacral channel, so this one works purely by response and can be very Energizer Bunny-ish. You know, it can give and give and give and give and give, whereas the 8-1 on the other side is a projector channel, and no matter how interested that gallery owner is in sharing art with the world, they need to be invited to do that, or else they are going to be imposing themselves on others, and it's just the energy isn't there for that to work right. I see kind of an example of this, not the 8-1. I mean, my partner has the one in the 2. I think you can probably see that in the camera. And so he is in his life generally concerned with not only his own creativity, but the nature of the creative contributions, because of course that's the other side of his channel. He would love to have that 8 energy activated, and he resonates to it. And it comes down to how he's working on this house that he is trying to renovate. And from my perspective, I'm on the sidelines. I'm not doing that work. But I see him battling himself. You know, we're in the process of deconditioning, yes, but we're also watching each other decondition. And as it happens, it's always easier to see and understand the other's process than our own. And from my perspective, I've been doing, of course, a ton of work to understand. Of course, I'm not done yet. I get that. I still have things to do. I still have insights that I can receive from other people on the progress that I have left to make, and that's fine. I'm willing to do that. But I do also see what's going on with him and some of the challenges that he's facing, especially because his circuitry is split, whereas mine is single and runs in one line. So he has all this head activation stuff that's so well developed, and then this stuff down here that works occasionally, but because there's a break, and of course his bridging gate is 16, the gate of skills. He's not always running. I want to say it diplomatically, like firing on all thrusters. He's very, very stubborn. Of course, well, we see why he's stubborn right there. 2838. He really, really wants to do this project his way, and that's okay. But I see that in not experimenting to the degree that he's willing to actually put it into daily practice with his sacral authority and honoring it, that he is suffering, still in a state of suffering. And it's extremely difficult for him to leave all of this head stuff, especially since it makes a connection to the throat. So he can talk all day long, and he's very wise and diplomatic. Of course, you can see that he has a 6th gate activation as well, so he's very aware of conflicts and the need for diplomacy and crises and being compassionate with other people, but in really letting the rubber meet the road, he's not fully engaged with human design yet. And so I see that the quality of his creative contribution is compromised. And that is a difficult thing for me to watch. Not that I have it all together, but in that place and in this time that we've had where we're kind of, we're having the 1-8 actually activated. It's not just the 8th gate and the 14th that are happening there. We don't actually have the 2nd
gate being activated during this transit, but the one is being activated, so we're seeing that whole entire channel of the presenter being active for the whole entire world here. And so these issues are coming up, and it's been quite a challenge for me. One of the other challenges that I had was I had a little bit of a wrangle, a little bit of a spicy wrangle with another human design teacher, an acolyte of Karen Curry, who I have uh, a lot of problems with. I think Karen Curry is light. And I think that a teacher of human design who wants to change all the terminology and change all the meanings and sue people is, I think she owes it to the world to do her own homework a little bit better before she starts sending it out. But that's just me. Go check it out for yourself if you want to see. But again, it just highlights that human design and having the power of so much information at our fingertips is no excuse not to put our own oxygen masks on first. And we must not submit to the hubris of thinking that if we've been in human design, just knowing about it for 7 years, that, oh, I'm deconditioned now. No, you're not. That's just the first phase of it. And Ross said specifically that there are others, but the biggest change that he had noticed after people had been through 7 years of deconditioning, understanding the dynamics of their charts, that they're just much more relaxed. They're not so stressed. They're not so worried. And I really like that perspective on it. Rather than being so focused in design on type, strategy, authority, which I'm not convinced. And 64 Keys has backed me up in their impressions on this, and they've, of course, been at it so much longer than I have, that that this trick of type, strategy, and authority is really as effective as Ra led us to believe initially. I think that we definitely have to take into account that Ra had an activation of the 4037, that whole channel, and that's the channel from the cross of planning. And of course, coming up soon, we're going to have the cross of duality, where we have a very interesting combination, a juxtaposition, if you will, although I really shouldn't use that word because then people get confused about the cross, a contrast between old and new, because we're going to have this cross of planning that Ra carried and was influenced by in his speaking and teaching of human design, and also the is it, yeah, it's the 3420. Now I have to check and make sure that I'm not getting that wrong here. What did we have in duality coming up? Yeah. The 3420 and the 4037 together as a definition in these people that have this cross. Boy, will that be interesting. But that's not where we are now. So, in the course of having this little bit of a spicy wrangle with this teacher, I of course, looked up her chart to examine it again. I had found her chart just when I was seeing some of her free videos on YouTube, and I don't think she's a bad teacher, but I think that she subscribes too much, first of all, to her own ego, and second of all, to being professional and squeezing the juice out of her individuality so that it's just way less exciting to me. You know, she and I have actually a lot in common in our circuitry. 3 out of the 4 of individual, and she also has the channel of struggle, where I have the explanation and, of course, looking backwards. But I think that how much we can get out of our own way matters. Because when we value, you know, shekels and pesos and bucks over the actual transmission of the knowledge and the clarity of the translation of the information, then human design loses something, and in that the world loses something, because it's just like they say, the world needs us to be who we are. The world needs us as individuals, not as capitalists or professionals. And the more we give of ourselves in being who we are, the more we give of something that the world is actually needing. Because I don't think that the world actually needs professionals. I would like to see a whole lot more unprofessional professionals. In fact, as an example, there is a design observer or reflector in Hawaii, I believe, who is, teaching from his own freaky, spooky, weird, funny, kooky kind of way. We're seeing his individuality, he makes faces and he's showing himself in different places and in different moods. He's being a reflector, he's being himself, and not everyone would necessarily groove with his style, but at least he's being him in what he's doing. And I got a lot of appreciation for that, even though I have not seen his design yet. So, but yeah, you can tell a lot about a person in human design as to whether or not they will actually give you their design. And this person that I was wrangling with, of course, she has shared her information. She doesn't post it on the wall like I do, but if you watch her videos and spend some time with her, you can see that she does actually share her chart and give enough information that you can find out exactly when and where she was born and learn about your teacher. And I do admire that. So it's not like I hate this woman, but I really would like to see more of her inside of her stuff, and I told her so, and she didn't like it. And then when I went and looked at her chart, I was like, oh, that's why she doesn't like it. And that's why she responded exactly how she did. And I was like, okay, somebody's resonating here, because of course she's missing that 20, just like I am, but she's going to be resonating to the 2, so she really was completely predictable. If I had studied her chart before I engaged with her, I could have almost given her end of the conversation back to her. It was very interesting, but I learned a lot. I learned about a lot about the nature of creative contribution and the creative contribution that this content creator is making. So, she has a lot of content, so good for her. Moving forward, let's look at these energies a little bit for next week. All right, so this next week, we're really looking at the nature of power, and Gate 20, which I don't have. So I'm, of course, quite curious about all the different manifestations of that now, of being able to see the world in all of its aspects as it is right now. And then, of course, I have a little bit of a problem because my 34s, I have 2 activations of them. I believe it's 3 and 5. 3 unconscious and 5 conscious. They are in Neptune. That's problematic for me because Neptune, the whole nature of the planet Neptune is that it's veiled. So when you have any activation in your chart that has this little spiky Neptune symbol, I don't know if I'm pointing to it exactly, but somewhere here right at the bottom, that means that it's something that we're not meant to look at. We're not meant to focus on it. We're not meant to try to deep dive into understanding it and making it work. It's almost like the more you just leave it the fuck alone, it can do its thing and you can have a consciousness raising experience. And I did not know that. Whoops. And of course, in my power ups, one of the biggest things that I can see in retrospect that I was doing was I was really feeling the full power of those double 34s in my chart, and I was taking them for a spin. I was like, hey man, I got all this power, I've got all this energy, let's go out and change some people. Let's go out and make some people see the light. Ah, a predictable kind of Neptune thing happened to me, and of course, in every one of my previous power ups, there has also been a pattern of very significant crashes and ugly, scary, bizarre things happening to the point that yeah, spent some time in the bottom. What is that? I was just hearing a song today where a guy said, uh, I've been frisked by men with badges and taught the meaning of how to be humble, or he didn't use that word, but it was a cute little song, but basically he was saying the cops definitely reorient to you to what you're allowed to do in this society and what you're not. And I have to say, yeah, I learned that one the hard way a few times. So power. It is problematic. It's one of those things where if you have that power, then you have a lot of energy, but you definitely need to use it for good or it will come back on you and it will not be lovely. For instance, like they say in, where is it? Line 1 is called, Ra calls it the bully. And of course, it's sort of a hidden bully. Where are we there? There we go in line 1. And 64 Keys calls it intimidation, which is probably a better term for it to be less inflammatory. But it's about the display of power as a response to frustration. And so it's about this feeling that, oh, I have power, I have so much, let me go out and do something with it, especially when I'm feeling frustrated with the world. And then, of course, you have to be aware that the way the world often responds to that power is to say, oh, you're going to have power? Well, let me show you my power in response to that. We're going to swing our dicks here. Okay, bring it on. And so that's not cool. And Rick Ra talks about, of course, the energy in the natural world where you see, for instance, cats arguing over a certain backyard. They're screaming and puffing and what, but rarely do they actually get into it. The display of power is usually enough to, make whatever communications need to be made to the other, and one will run off. So this energy of like bulls or deer, bison, all these animals that run at each other and butt heads. That would be, of course, the use of power rather than the display of power. But there's lots of animals that use power displays to declare the edges of their territory. Hey, back off. Hey, I'm dangerous. We have our praying mantis. So that's really the kind of power that we're talking about. And I think definitely in my case, it's taken decades for me to come to an understanding of just because I have power doesn't mean I need to go out and show it off. That kind of wisdom has been hard earned in my case. So, for those of you who also have 34th gate activations and you haven't learned this, take it from somebody who's been arrested more than once, more than twice. But yeah, the learning how to use that power properly, finding the time, finding the place, finding the proper use for it is very important. My activations are, of course, this machismo, the display of power that can be delusional. Yeah, right on. And then I have line 5, annihilation, the elimination of resistance through power. And that's really what the purpose of power is for, to eliminate resistance. So that's an interesting note to be thinking of as we're all starting to feel this power in the next few days in this, wind up to Turkey Day or Genocide Day, as we call it around here. So it's an interesting thing. If you have this activation already in your chart, then you probably are not going to be feeling it all that much more. But I don't know. If you do, let me know for sure. I'd really love to have some sort of engagement with the people who are watching these videos to see, did you notice anything? Or is it just information that doesn't actually have any applicative value for you? And the other one is, of course, gate 20 that we're talking about. How long have I been gabbing? All right, I have a little bit more time, I think. And looking at the 20, we're looking at how it is to be going in the world. In reading the line companion, I found this nice description for 20 line 1 that I really liked. Because 20 line 1, in 64 keys, it's called shallowness, but Ra calls it superficiality. And I have an old mentee of mine who does carry, I believe, 2 activations of the 20th gate. Her chart is over here on the side, but it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that every time that I've been around her, I've really been feeling that 20 from her. And since I've become aware of what's going on with that, I've really been like trying to study how the 20 activates and manifests in her, because she gets, let's see, if you have 3 activations in the integration circuit, you get 3 channels. But if you have 4 activations, you get 6 channels. So she has 3 and I have 3, and the 2 of them are different for us because, of course, hers are based on the 20 and mine are based on the 34 that she is lacking in her design. So it's given me an opportunity to study the nature of the 20 a little bit, is what I'm saying. And I really liked this description of 20 line 1. He talks about it as being, because people, they put the judgment on it. Oh, 21s are also superficial. Well, only in a way. And there's, I've got to say it endlessly. No judgment. We have to take off the judgments that society has put on some of these definitions because they're human. It's human to be shallow and also sometimes to be deep, and that's just it. And in this case, the shallowness is not true shallowness, but it's apparent shallowness. And Ra's metaphor makes that clear because he says anyone who's ever had a cat understands the shallowness of the 20.1. The cat's sitting there looking around. It doesn't really give a shit. It's just like, how cats do. I love cats, but they're very just like above it all. Oh, I don't really care about you. Me. But they're ready at a moment's notice to spring into action and go do something. So they're not really being superficial. And how Rod described it was, he said that it's about the 20, this now awareness that people who carry the 20 have. It's in the integration circuit. So yes, it's individual, but it's also for the sake of survival. All of the gates and channels in integration are about primal survival. They are about getting your body out of the path of the car that is heading for you. And so in the moment that survival is in danger, that there's actually a need for it, boom, the now is there for them. And that's what it's about. So it may seem like they don't care, but those 20th activation people are actually seeing the world in a way that so many other people aren't, because other people are looking at it through different kinds of filters, different lenses, different perspectives, and it's the 20th gate that really sees everything now. So sometimes they can be a little bit like Debbie Downerish or depressed because they walk outside their door and they see everything that's wrong. Not in an 18th gate kind of way, but just in the raw, ugly reality of the concrete jungle, of people being mean to people, of, excuse me, people honking horns and, hurting each other. And yeah, they see the beautiful thing in the moment, but depending on your perspective, there is an awful lot of uh, ugliness, drabness, grayness, smallness in the world, and it can be a difficult thing to carry. At least that's what he says, and he does carry the, yeah, he does carry the 20 um, in a chart. And of course, I believe Roz is 20 line 6, so it's very much in that 6 line way, which is about, yeah, I could do something about it. Yeah, I see it. But unless there's some greater purpose or greater motivation for it all, I don't really give a shit. I don't care. I don't need to save the world. I don't need to be there for it. And he said he actually really felt that he didn't feel like he needed to give this information to the world immediately. And it was, I think, outside factors that uh, motivated him eventually to be like, okay, well, I guess I do have to actually put myself out there and be willing to look like a fool to get enough attention to this that somebody else can have the information. And he said, in talking about the Gate 8 creative contributions, that it wasn't until after he had actually written a book talking about it that people started to say, oh, okay, and interfere with him less in the process of getting that information out, because they were like, hey, he's made a contribution, so what can we say about that? It's out there. All right, it must have some validity. And then people started looking at it, and of course, the more they looked at it, the more they saw, whoa, there's a bunch of cool shit here. So yeah. So we're going to be moving through, of course, every single one of these lines of Gate 20 and Gate 34. This Phoenix, connection that is both interesting in its in how it's being shown right now in the world, because right now we're in a really special time. And I think it's actually even more important of a time than just being at the edge of a 400-year cycle shift. I think it's actually, and from what the astrologers say, that they've never ever seen a time like this before. And I think, well, if you look at the nature of the experiment in the world in general, that makes sense, because you have a lot of cycles that are nesting within other cycles, but then at some point it's all one cycle. And if you've watched The Egg, which, if you've been listening to me, I'm sure somewhere in some of the transits I said, absolutely go to YouTube and look up that 8-minute video if you haven't seen it, called The Egg, and see this cute little animated thing that's talking about, long story short, I'll break it down for you. I'm not the whole thing. It's really, really cute and it's so short. But the idea is that our whole entire world, our whole entire universe is like an egg. We're gestating. And of course, I read a lot of science fiction as well, and it's sort of a common trope, I think, within the science fiction community, that there's a whole bunch of other intelligences, galaxies that are looking specifically at us and our planet right now, because right now is kind of that tipping point where you're looking at an evolving civilization and seeing, okay, is this world, are they going to be able to pull themselves out of their own asses long enough that they will be able to uh, advance, like get over the hump, like get out of their own front door, so to speak, so that they can be, in this analogy, born an egg that's going to become uh, a godlike consciousness creature thing that we can't really understand the nature of now, but that is something much more than what is actually going on in this world, which, if you listen to Tom Campbell and MBT, he says is really a very basic, easy, and one of the more pleasant kinds of trainers that are out there for teaching us that, hey guys, it's actually better to work together and love each other and cooperate for the sake of everyone and our joint evolution than it is to be selfish or, um, you know, uh, completely inwardly focused and wanting it to be all about me, and how much junk can I get before I die? Can we get out of that mindset before we kill ourselves and the planet we're standing on? And so, if you look at it in those terms, well, yeah, in the whole entire, history of the world, there really needs to be just that one point that is not like any other in being the deciding factor of, okay, are they really going to do it, or are they going to be stillborn? And that's why the time that we are in is so very special. And to swing back around to what I was talking about, it was about the 3420, and that being the energy of the next 400-year cycle, along with, of course, the 55 abundance and the 59 intimacy. So it's a lot of very interesting times we have ahead, but we can get a preview of those times in this transit right here, where the whole entire world will be actively feeling the 3420 and actively be manifesting generators. No matter what else we are, everyone's going to be a manifesting generator for the next approximate week. I'm going to call it a week, but y'all know it's really only slightly less than 6 days. So, this information will actually carry us through Thursday. So, I am going to try to have by next Thursday's transit, or the next week's transit report there, so that those of you who have the time, you may be busy, and that's fine. I don't give a care if nobody watches it. This has been a good exercise for me, and it's a record for me of where I was in my journey, in my struggles. My partner and I are entering a time of struggle and reevaluation of our relationship, which is giving me an unprecedented opportunity. Some people, might think of it as a crisis, or, oh no, they're, gonna break up or something like that. But I'm not really seeing it like that, because I've been spending the last few years since I discovered Humun Design and really, started working with my design to try to live in it and understand it fully, this pull between myself and my partner. And of course, if you don't remember, my main Chiron wound is to submit to the will of others. And so, of course, I have been unknowingly submitting to everyone around me. And of course, in my childhood, I didn't have a choice about that. I was forced and conditioned to be a submitter. As a woman, and, being in this very cult-like religion, it is a cult technically, but in some ways, kind of all religions are cults, except for like maybe Unitarianism and Buddhism, but most of the other ones definitely have some sort of a cultish thing going on there, but it's a trick. It's a trick, like a lot of things are a trick, to try to get people to look at love and to work that way. It's just that religions, I think, are a little bit more of a mechanical, be very afraid. If you don't do it, some big dude is going to smite you kind of a way, rather than, come on, man, just look at the facts. It just makes sense. And there's no use really fighting about that. You can be small and petty if you want to, but in the end, you're really only hurting yourself and everyone else in doing that. So let's be nice, shall we? Let's try to be nice. Let's try to help each other. Let's build each other's barns. And then we all have barns. Isn't that nice? Barns are good. Let's have barns. So anyway, have fun. Feel that 34. Feel that 20. The end of that cycle is, of course, 34-6. Common sense, according to Ra, and reason, according to 64 keys. The wisdom to restrict the use of power. And that is where, after so many hard lessons, I have ended up. When I'm feeling that kind of power, I need to be very, very careful how I release it, because I have learned the hard way to have wisdom in the use of that power. So, yeah, I got to the top there eventually. And the 34-6 is, of course, really concerned in looking over the fence into the next gate, which is 9-1. So we're going to be looking at attention to detail in a different kind of way in the next week. And then the 20, line 6, which is wisdom, the wisdom to apply understanding. And that's the understanding of what we see by existing in this moment right now and being ready for whatever might come for us. That energy is in the 6th line, really looking over the gate into the next gate, which is 16, about skills and gaining skills. So next time we'll be looking at the 9-16, which is also that's old energy. So yeah, interesting. I'll have to look into that. Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get an understanding of that. And it's actually, oh yeah, duality. Oh, okay, now I'm understanding. Duality is the left angle for this grouping. I didn't even think to say that. Oh, and we do have a global shift as well. Let me talk about that real quick. So, because I did forget this detail, the right angle of this grouping is the Phoenix. So that's the energy we're talking about, that is straight up coming for us, rising out of the ashes energy. And then we have the juxtaposition, which is of power, where the underlying support energy switches from 59 and 55 to the 40-37. So we have that there. And then in the left angle, which is transpersonal and outwardly focused, lines 5 and 6, we still have the underlying energy of the 40-37 with the 34-20. That's where we have the juxtaposition of old and new. And it was actually correct to use juxtaposition as a term, because that juxtaposition is holding both the channel of the old cross of planning and the channel of the new cross of the Phoenix for us, to really have this contrast between the old and the new sitting right next to each other. Very interesting. And so this duality is continuing to hold that energy, just not in such a fixed way as the technical juxtaposition is holding that. So we'll swing around and talk about that more next week. And quickly, I said last time that I was going to give the global shift, and I didn't, and here we have another one. So I'm just like, well, fuck, we better get on that. What was that other global shift that I forgot to talk about, though? Let me see if I can find it real quick, because that one would have been... Oh, it was the Chiron that I forgot about. Yeah. Let me tell you about this too real quick. So the Chiron has shifted from 42-4 into 42-3 now. That's, of course, the third line, the trial and error of the thing. And it's actually called trial and error. Mistakes lead to shame and overcautiousness, the lack of energy and awareness to turn mistakes into valuable experiences. So the people who are being born now and for the next while are going to have as their chirons, their conscious personality chirons, this difficulty with learning from their mistakes, or this sometimes yes sometimes no, this real rubber meets the road in experimenting with things, bonds made and broken, grasping the nettle and then oh the nettle is nettly kind of thing, in their ability to learn from their mistakes. And of course we as a globe are also feeling that chiron energy now. So if you're feeling like stuck and frustrated in that energy, that might be some of an explanation for it. And then the global shift that we have here is happening on the last day. So that will be on Thursday. And it is from Uranus, which is in retrograde, like almost all of the outer planets. Pluto finally left retrograde, but it's still not back out of its, compensating from going backwards mode. So there's that. Anyway, it moves from 8-6 into 8-5. This is where we get the 8 for, well, I guess it's another place where we get the 8, huh? Because we've had in the last time, yeah, we had 2 8s. So this is into 8-5, which is order, balancing, cohesion, and separation. Of course, that is what the world wants to see as the most mature and developed aspect of the what Ra calls the gallery owner or the taxi driver, the one who's really making a creative contribution to society in what they are giving. And so the fifth line is able to balance. Okay, let's bring it together, let's take it apart, let's do what needs to be done so that the forces can be balanced and creative contributions can be helped and lifted into the world. So if you're seeing that this energy is out there for that, well, then you can thank our dear Uranus planet for giving us that kind of energy. So, I'm tired of talking, and I'm pretty sure you're tired of listening. So, go do fun things. Have a nice build up to Turkey Day, and I will be seeing you with another transmission after, well, right around Turkey Day. So, until then, ciao, folks.